Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meredith Elliott Powell. Brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
Let's turn uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. This is Meredith Elliott Powell, and welcome to Ask for Change, the show where we dive into everything that you need to know to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. And today, we have such an interesting topic because I think people's biggest challenge with uncertainty is that we want clarity, we want certainty, we want to know what is going to happen. In other words, we want what we are never going to get. And what if the answer to uncertainty was service? Well, today, my guest is going to help us uncover how powerful leading with service can be in an uncertain marketplace. He learned a very simple rule from his father that's carried him through 30 years of leading others through change. That lesson: if you're stuck, serve. I want you to welcome to the show Ed Hart. He has spent his career guiding people, mostly family-owned businesses, and we want to talk about a lot of uncertainty. They are in family-owned businesses, but he has guided them through not by waiting for the fog to clear, but by turning outward, by focusing on others rather than focusing on yourself. So welcome to the show, consultant, speaker, author, podcaster, Ed Hart, and my friend, Ed Hart. Welcome to the show.
That's the title I'm most proud of all of that, Meredith, is that you and I can remember when and where we met. It was June of 2011, and I had started day one of my new job running the Center for Family Business at Cal State Fullerton out here in California, where I live. And I found myself literally on day one at University of North Carolina, Asheville, with our mutual friend, Cindy Clark, hosting a conference, and you were one of the speakers there. And it's funny, the very first topic of the day of that conference I attended was, let's talk about what's worked well over the last year in your job running a center. And this was day one, so I didn't have a whole lot to talk about. I just put my ear to everybody and listened. And yeah, it's great to be with you. And you know, for those who are, fans of Meredith, who are in the thousands and thousands, I've had the opportunity to have Meredith on my podcast a couple of times. And that topic of service, we can dive into it. But yeah, it's just great to see you. And thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, well, I am excited to. What I think is so important to understand about uncertainty is that you have to give up this idea. You have to let go that you know the answer or what's going to happen. So take us back to the beginning of your journey. Talk to us a little bit about your father and kind of walk us through where and when he first said that to you and why it stuck and resonated with you so much.
I think it's less of him actually sharing the words with me and more just sharing it with me in action. Yeah. I noticed through him a lot, and he did say the words at some point, and I can't pinpoint the exact date or time or when or even what age I was, but I noticed that with him, my dad, a 25-minute podcast isn't enough for me to talk about my dad, but I've been blessed. He was one of my heroes, for my first hero growing up as a child. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and by the time I was aware of life, he was pretty well into his 39-year career with the company as a senior HR executive. And, we were able to travel and do things together, my mom and dad and I, that maybe my older siblings couldn't do because he was battling through the beginning stages of his career. But by the time I came along, he was pretty well established. They both were in their careers. And I just remember noticing that if he was in situations where he was stuck or situations where there was a challenge, he was very service oriented. He served our family incredibly well. He was always there to serve us kids, our kids, so their grandkids, people in the community. And I've really strived to apply that in my life, that, to take that phrase, if you're stuck, serve, just a little bit further. I use it in just about everything. If I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm stuck in a situation and I can't solve it, step away and go serve my wife. Go, if she's saying, oh, I got to do the dishes, well, go do the dishes before she has a chance to even get into the kitchen, or things like that. If it's a personal relationship, if you're stuck in a relationship with a client or a family member, serve them. I mean, I don't think there's a greater way to learn how to love somebody than serving them, because when you're serving them, you're putting them above you. And when you're putting them above you, it really goes back to that servant leadership model that Robert Greenleaf talked about, that Ken Blanchard has talked about, and so many others, that when we serve the people that we lead or serve the people that we're around, our patience seems to grow, our love grows, and the things that we worried about or argued about or stressed out about tend to just kind of dissolve.
Yeah. You know what I love about it. So when I was a kid, my mother used to always say to me, the fastest way to get past your own problems is to focus on somebody else's.
100%.
And the older I get, I really realize just, oh, my mother just, I should write a book just about my mother's sayings, just her philosophies of life. But what I love about this is somebody who has spent, gosh, the last really 20 years focusing on uncertainty and studying and researching uncertainty, is that the problem with uncertainty is that we go inward. And we go inward, naturally we go inward. We're
Yeah.
afraid. Like, what if I don't book enough business this year? What if I can't find the employee I need? What if somebody in my family gets sick? What if we have an unforeseen medical bill? What if? And we turn inward. And inward is the last place you're ever going to find the answers, because the moment that you turn inward, you turned inward because of fear. And fear, from the research we've done, we've discovered is literally shut down innovation and creativity. It shuts down your ability to find the answers. And I love this idea of what your father said to you, and the way that you live your life is through serving. You'll find the answers. Talk a little bit about inward focus versus outward focus as it comes to dealing with change and uncertainty.
Yeah, two things immediately come to mind as you're talking about that. Number one, I've often heard the opposite of fear is love. And there's no greater love than serving someone else. And I could get very biblical here, or I could just get very commonsensical here. And I think the common sense side of it is just to the point that we talked about earlier. When you're serving somebody, it's really hard to have negative feelings towards them. And then the other is, when we go inward, we tend to worry more. And we've all heard those percentages. And the one that I'll quote is that 95% of the things we worry about never actually happen. So we're spending so much time worried about something that's not going to happen that we've wasted all that time. So when we're more externally focused, yeah, that uncertainty word, I mean, if there's ever been, I hate to keep going back to COVID, because we all talk about everything that's happened in the last 6 years, and none of us have experienced anything like what we experienced in 2020 prior to then in our lives. Doesn't matter how old you are, nobody ever saw anything like that.
No.
And that created just massive uncertainty. We didn't know from day to day what the days were. We didn't know what the news was going to tell us when we turned it on, if another 100,000 people had died, or if the cure had come overnight, or if it was spreading into my neighborhood tomorrow. We had no idea. Everything was uncertain. So we had to be prepared for things that we couldn't prepare for. And so I think we prepared. I can prepare to go on a trip by packing. I can prepare to go on a walk by putting my shoes on. I can't prepare for uncertainty other than just knowing it's coming and just having my guard up and, hey, I'm ready. Bring it on. Whatever comes my way, I'm ready. And I think that if we're outward focused, and if we just get into our own internal mindset and bubble, to your point, we don't respond very well to what's happening. But if we're out there ready, bring it on. Whatever comes. Unemployment comes. I've been out of work. I've had times in my life where I've had no work. I've had times in my life where I've had, quote unquote, too much work and didn't know how to get it all done.
Yeah.
And that creates uncertainty too. How do I handle all the things that I have to do?
Yeah, I think that, my husband always laughs because I'm always running around the house, either saying, oh my gosh, I have so much work, I can't possibly keep up, I'm drowning in everything, to running around the house going, oh my God, no work has come in, we're not going to be able to eat next month. I mean, it's always one extreme really to the other.
Yeah.
But why does serving someone else work better than trying to think or strategize your way out of uncertainty?
For me, I think the number one asset we have is our mind, and the number one liability we have is also our mind.
So well said.
And I think that we have the ability to do more than we possibly can imagine most of the time. But going back to that worry comment earlier, I think that we get in our own way. So I think when we just step outside of ourselves and I go serve, I know for me personally, I can't speak for any other human being other than myself, but when I go out and I just go serve somebody, again, it could be making the bed because my wife, her back hurts today, or she's not here, or doing dishes, or, I think about her a lot because that's the person I live with. But anybody, if I think of a client, if I think of just opening and holding a door for somebody else, or, somebody says, oh, I really need to do such and such, and we just get up and we go do it. It takes us out of that liability mindset that we can have where we just get in our own way. If I pull away from all the negativity and the negative thoughts I'm having and just go do something for someone else. And sometimes serving is for ourselves. Sometimes I just need to go lay on a beach or go sit by the pool or open up a book and if I put I've used the story. If I'm sitting here at my desk and I put my pen down and I go read a book for a half hour because I need to serve myself for a half an hour, I come back and I have a much different approach to what I was stuck doing or trying to do because I just got away from it for a minute. Just walk away for a few minutes if you can.
Do you think that serving is more of a strategy or a way of life or some kind of combination of the two?
I'd like it to be more of a strategy. I think certainly it's, I think of that difference between the terms react and respond. If I react to something, it's typically negative. You give me medication as my doctor and I react, I'm probably not doing well. But if I'm responding and I want to continue to go down that road. I think more organizations should use service as a strategy. I think the great companies that I work with, and I work with many like you do, when I look back at what makes these companies great, and I've done research on this. I did a lot of research for 11 years when I ran the center at Cal State Fullerton. Part of the research I did over the years was what made companies and family businesses, which was my audience, what made them successful. And there were a lot of things, but the one common denominator they all had was service was ingrained in their philosophy as a company. They were giving, they encouraged their employees to give. I have companies I work with now who give little giving cards to each employee that they can now go out and give to a nonprofit of their choice and then come back and talk about it. So you may give to, Autism Speaks. I may give to United Way. Somebody else may give to another. But then we come back and we talk in the organization about who we gave to and why. And we get to know each other better because we know what makes us tick. Why did you choose the organization you did? Why did I choose the one I did? So I would love to, and I encourage my clients. I did a survey in 2012 when I first started running the center at Fullerton of all of the family businesses we worked with. And there were about 400 companies in the database. And one of the topics of the survey was about philanthropy. And I asked questions that were along the lines of, what's your philanthropic strategy? And now this was 14 years ago. What surprised me was the number of companies that didn't have a philanthropic strategy. Someone said, can you sponsor my kids' Little League team? Sure, here's $100. Can you sponsor my jogathon? Sure, here's 10 cents a mile or whatever. What's evolved over time with corporate social responsibility and all these organizations around America and around the world really focusing more on philanthropy is I do think more organizations now have that structure. And I really do believe that that's, I'm not going to say I believe, I know from watching companies thrive. And I saw it going back to COVID. Companies that come to mind here in Southern California, which is again where I live, when I watched companies step outside of, oh my gosh, how are we going to keep our doors open? To, wow, I've got all this food, or I've got all this PPE equipment, or I have all these clothes that we can tear up and turn into masks, whatever we can do. Those companies that did those things early on in 2020 are thriving today. And the ones that went inward and said, oh my gosh, how do we stay open? What am I going to do? Probably aren't with us today.
What do you think the trick to that is? Why do you think that works?
I think the first thing that comes to mind that is an unintentional positive consequence is that other people see it. I don't think you're doing it for that reason, but I think when people see the restaurant that's now out donating food to hospitals and police stations and frontline workers, I don't think that they're necessarily doing it for the attention, but the attention they're getting is people are registering, okay, when things get better and I can start going out to eat again, I'm going there because I see that they care. So part of it is just the visibility. I don't think doing it for that reason makes sense. I don't think, I'm doing it for the attention. I'm doing it because it's right. And you can tell when people are authentic or people are doing things to be seen. I think most of us can tell the difference. So part of it, I think, is just other people see where your heart is and what you're doing. And I think it goes back to just that taking yourself out of the equation. How can I today? I had a friend of mine. You've met my friend Tam.
Yeah.
Tam came to a couple of the conferences where you've spoken. He's actually now the center director at Cal State Fullerton as of this
Oh,
month.
I did not realize
Yeah,
that.
he's in that role now, which is phenomenal. When COVID started in 2020, Tam and I would text or call each other every morning. By 6 o'clock in the morning, if I hadn't heard from him, he was going to hear from me. And that's just how it was. And it was the conversation is, who can we serve today? What can we do? Because I can't go sit in a restaurant with somebody. I can't go out. So how from the comfort of my home can I serve somebody today? And I think the companies and the individuals that have that attitude just, again, it kind of goes back to what I said is people see it. You're not doing it for that reason, but it does register. And it really does take you away from your problems. If I don't look at my problems all day and I'm trying to look for solutions for other people, oftentimes I end up finding solutions for my own problems too.
Yeah.
What for you? Hey, maybe that'll work for me too.
It is amazing to me that if you sit at your desk and you try to solve your problems, you struggle to find the answers. If you go out and you really start focusing on somebody else, somehow the answer to your problem really, you know, just bubbles up. But when you think about someone spinning in uncertainty, and I love this idea of spinning in uncertainty because I think that's what people are doing right now. I've got two speaking engagements coming up, and both of them, I mean, I'm just speaking with the meeting planners, and they just sound like their members are exhausted from all this uncertainty. But what do people usually get wrong about how to move forward in an uncertain marketplace? And and does or how does serving fix that?
Well, I'm a big fan of words and what the meaning of words. And this comes from my mom now. We talked about my dad. My mom was an English major and she was a counselor and worked a lot with women and men getting into the workforce back in the 70s and the 80s. But she taught me the power of words. And so when I think of uncertainty, I think of the opposite, and that is certainty. Can you tell me a company that can operate from certainty? Does anybody really certainly know what tomorrow's going to look like in their company, in their industry, in their economy, in their geography? I mean, I think if we understand that the only constant is change. That's an old quote that's been around for longer than you and I have been around. But modifying it to today, the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. So I think that it kind of goes back to, I love sports, as I think you know. And some of my favorite coaches that I could sit here and quote, and I won't use names because I'll botch it, but some of my favorite philosophies from some coaches that I've heard, especially in football. I'm a big baseball guy, but football's coming right now in the next month or so. The most successful coaches, John Wooden, I'll think of John Wooden.
Yes.
Basketball coach, UCLA, 11 national championships. He coached for 16 years, UCLA, before he won one championship. People think he just was a champion, but he learned for 16 years of failing, eventually what worked. And what he figured out was, rather than focusing so much energy and time on my opponent and what are they going to do and how are they going to react and respond to situations, let's just perfect our own playbook. Let's get so masterful at what we do. Let's run 5 plays, do them better than anybody else, and know that they work regardless of who we're playing. So I think of that a little bit in a company situation. Identify what do you do as a speaker? What do I do as a podcaster or a writer or consultant that's better than anybody else? Jack Welch said, if you can't have competitive advantage, don't compete.
Yeah.
Figure out what your competitive advantage is so that you can compete and win. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, and I'm probably taking myself down a rabbit hole that wasn't even what you asked, but I just think that, the only thing that really is certain in anything we're doing is what can I do? What's my controllable? I can't control the weather. I can't control a pandemic. I can't control politics. I can't control tariffs, things like that. I can complain about it all day long, and I do. But at the end of the day, okay, tariffs are real. Pandemic's real. Economy is real. Things are happening. All I can do is what I can do. And so that's the certainty that I can prepare for.
Yeah. I mean, it is that it's. I think one of the biggest predictors of success in life is your ability to focus your energy on what you can control and forget about everything else.
And adaptability is one of the greatest strengths a leader has, because again, when things change, or not just a leader, anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I look at 7-year-olds. I got 12 grandkids, and I know which of my grandkids can adapt really well and which ones can't.
Yeah.
You know, if they're told we're going to do this and we don't do it, it's a meltdown. Others, if I tell them we're going to do this, oh, we're going to do that. Oh, cool. And adaptability is just it's something we all need to strive to be better.
Do you think that can be a learned skill, or do you think it's something that you're born with?
Yes. I hate to say yes to both. I think we all, gosh, I could answer a million different questions with that same answer. We're born a certain way, but we can also learn. Very situational. I think if you don't have role models, I mean, if you had parents that were very strict and stringent and not adaptable, chances are you won't be either.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had parents who were very adaptable, you know, I look at kids, I wasn't this kid, but kids who grew up in the military family that moved every 2 or 3 years, those are oftentimes the most adaptable people I know, because they've had to. So they may not have been born that way, but they lived in 9 different homes over 18 years. They're pretty adaptable because they've been forced to.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that I'm adaptable, but when big things happen that kind of rock my boat, I might freak out like that 7-year-old that doesn't like change.
Yeah.
But so I think that we can learn it to a certain extent based on experiences. I hope that we can. I hope that people can be role models and examples and teach us. And I hope that I can teach people around me to be a little bit more adaptable.
So, you know, it's hard to believe, but we basically roll into the end of this podcast, and I always like to end it with 2 questions, and you can answer them in either order. Number one, how do people find out about you? How do they find out about your work? And they've got to find out about your podcast. It's so good, and your brand new book coming out. We'll put all the links here to in the show notes. But what is your greatest piece of advice? I mean, so many people out there are really struggling. I think 4 out of 5 people are burned out, stressed out, completely overwhelmed, cannot handle any more change. And guess what is happening? More change is coming. So as we look at the world today, what is your greatest piece of advice to help people really learn to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage?
So I'll answer the first one first. Just getting me is easy. Hart Leadership, HART, hartleadership.com is my website. Literally everything I do is on that site. My LinkedIn is just, if you go to LinkedIn and just type Ed Hart, you'll find me. Everything's on there too. I put a lot of my life, personal and I think personal and professional all overlap. I get razzed by people sometimes for putting too many family pictures or personal things on there, but I think it's all part of who we are. So easy to reach, and I'd love to talk to anybody about anything. And I'm always looking for great guests for my podcast as well. And anybody who has a story, which is you, if you're listening, you have a great story.
Yes.
So contact me. I'll put you on. We'd love to talk. And I think that sort of answers the second question to a point. I think that, you know, that when you suck, serve is certainly the philosophy that we led with on this. But I think that recognizing, for me personally, recognizing that every relationship you have matters. You may not think that barista at Starbucks that you see once every few days, or that grocer at the local grocery store, or the mailman or the FedEx guy that drops off a package on your porch, that really matters. But you know what? You might be the only person that day that smiled and said hi to that person. And I had a pastor years ago. We were trying to figure out, you know, where we were going to church at the time, where we wanted to serve. Did you want to serve with kids? Did you want to serve with young adults? Did you want to serve as a parking lot attendant, wherever you want to serve? And the pastor just simply said, if you want to know where to serve, just ask yourself the question of what breaks your heart. And when you think about what breaks your heart, starts the answer as to where I should probably serve, because I can put my attention towards what breaks my heart. So I think that the answer would be just, you know, maybe or maybe not ask yourself that question, what breaks my heart? Maybe you'll do that, but really just look at the people in your life, the relationships you have. There's a reason that person came into your life today. And like I said, you might be the only smile they get all day. You might be the only I love you they hear. You might be the only door that's open for them in weeks or months or years. And just follow your heart. No pun intended. My last name is Hart. My podcast is From the Heart. My newsletter is Heartbeats. I play to my last name a lot because I can, but also I really do operate from the heart. I mean, I try to, you know, maybe to a fault. I'm probably much more touchy-feely than analytical, but you know, with me, you know, you're going to get somebody that cares about people, and if you need someone to reach out and love on you today, call me. I'll do it. I'll be
Well,
that guy that will do that.
and the thing that I love about that is I think it's the thing that is missing so much from today's world, right? Like we just don't have enough of you think about the ability that I have the ability to connect with anybody in any moment. All I have to do is pick up my phone and I can text them, I can call them, I can do a FaceTime with them. But we're struggling with more disconnection and things than we've ever felt in our lifetime. And I think so much of that is that it just feels like people don't care.
Well, mental health issues are at the highest they've been in my lifetime. And I think it comes down to loneliness, and loneliness comes down to feeling, going back to your comment earlier, we turn inward. I think that this isn't an introvert or an extrovert comment I'm going to make, because I know a lot of extroverts who turn inward a lot and a lot of introverts who never do, which is great. But I think that when we do turn inward, goes back to that whole our mind can be our liability. We start creating scenarios that might not be accurate or might not be true, or might not be as bad as we think they are. And I think that just knowing that we're put here for a reason. We're in community with people, whether it's family or the street you live on or the church you attend or the school your kids go to or the work where you are. You're in that community for a reason. And it's incumbent on each of us to figure out what that reason is. And ultimately, to me, it really does come down to the people. I mean, it's important to be intelligent. It's important to be analytical. It's important to be disciplined. It's important to be structured. I get all of that, not my strengths. But I look at you and I watch you on stage, and I've seen Meredith on stage a lot through NSA and through speaking at conferences where I've been in the audience and even shared a stage with you once or twice. And the ability to connect, one-on-one is important, but even one-to-many is pretty cool. You can somehow connect with people from an audience. You might say something, and if one person in that audience of 1,000 feels you in what you said, mission accomplished, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, I want to thank you so much.
Thank
A,
you.
for being my friend, B, for joining us on the podcast, and C, for reminding us the importance of the best way to thrive in uncertainty is to serve first and always. So thank you for being such an amazing guest.
Thank you. This is great. Fast 20 minutes or so.
Thank all of you for joining us for another episode. Now, remember, we'll see you right back here next week at I think it's 1 o'clock Eastern on Tuesdays for another episode of Ask for Change. This is the show where we help you shift how you think, feel, and act about uncertainty and turn uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.